Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for your patience. It has been a month without podcasts, but I promise I am returning to you in phase 2 with our new direction, a new excitement, and hopefully all you motherfuckers will be back in here. But speaking of motherfuckers, there are 17 very important ones worth mentioning before we continue forward, and those are the Sages of the Lodge. So, very quickly, thank you to Alex Pamal, David Fries, Shane Driscoll, Chris Perkowski, Scott Castellano, Maria Palmieri, my family, Julie Rossman, Nick Taborski, Charlotte Astry, Kevin McBride, Michael Fay, Richard Arnold, Dan Muller, Andrew Clay, Roger Kemp, and today's guest, an honorary Sage of the Lodge, Andrew Parker from his new podcast, Send the Invite. Andrew, what's going on, man?
Oh, not much, Nick. It is great to be back here. Long overdue visit to the lodge.
Very long overdue. I know you just launched your own gaming podcast, so the floor is yours. Let the people know what you got going on before we continue forward.
Absolutely. So I started this new show. It is called Send the Invite. You can find us just about on every platform you find the lodge. And we kind of every week get into a deep discussion about whatever's relevant, whether that be what's going on with games, any one of these millions of game conferences we're getting every week. If we want to look back on an old game, whatever we kind of want to dive into that week. So that's the main gist of it. So you can find me on any podcast platform that you find the lodge on.
Hell yeah. I think it's worth mentioning your first episode dealt with the very popular and very much talked about The Last of Us 2. So I know it's a hot topic. If you're interested in this wise man's take, please head over to Send the Invite and give it a listen. But today, we're here to talk about a company that I'm personally very obviously a shill for, and that's Square Enix, who announced that in July and August, they're going to be individually announcing new titles. But before we jump into that, I figure it'd be best let's talk about the ones that we know are on the way, starting with Project Athia, which was something you expressed interest in and was one of the games that got showcased at the PS5 event.
Yeah, it was definitely one that caught my attention during the PS5 event, which was funny because they didn't really show us a lot, to tell you the truth. Like, from what I saw, I was like, all right, it looked like almost like, did you see that Unreal 5 demo that they showed of like the new Unreal 5? It kind of reminded me of that, of just like, hey, look how cool this is, but there's no idea what this is about.
Well, it's like we got all cinematics and no gameplay, right?
Yeah, I mean, there was like slight gameplay, like when she kind of put her hand out and all those vines kind of came out.
And you see her jumping the cliffs and stuff. Very standard stuff.
Yeah, like it kind of looked like Tomb Raider mixed with like Shadow of the Colossus or like Alan Wake or something like that. Those were like the vibes I was getting.
And you know what? That's exactly why I kind of drew some interest in it. I was like, this looks like a molding of worlds almost.
Yeah, there was something in like the press release too put out about it, where they said that there's a group of creative writers that are kind of working on this game, and one of them is Gary Whitta, who I don't know if you know Gary. He is the writer of Rogue One and the Book of Eli. So he's like one of the creative guys on this project, and like I'm a big Gary Whitta shill, and I was like, yo, I'm in. Like, well, I think that sold me more than the trailer did.
Yeah. Well, I can tell you, like, I loved both those films, but when I think of Book of Eli, I'm like, that seems right up Square Enix's alley in terms of narrative. Not that Rogue One isn't,
Yeah.
Not that Rogue One isn't, but Book of Eli has everything Square Enix looks for when it comes to, like, old mythological archetypes or Christian mythology, which is a lot of what they play with in their games. But the game really did look cool. I wish we got more gameplay shown, not just for Project Athia, but in the PS5 demo in general. But, I'm open to whatever Square has going, but this was made, very interesting fact about Project Athia, it was made in the Luminous engine. Now, I don't know how much you know about Square Enix and the Luminous engine, but the reason why Final Fantasy 15 and Kingdom Hearts 3 took so long was because they switched from the Luminous engine into the Unreal engine. And and some of the gripes held against Final Fantasy 15 was that it was very rushed. So a lot of people are like, so this is the game that kind of messed up the development of Final Fantasy 15. Well, let's hope it's a gem, so it's worth it.
Mm-hmm. And now it's going to have that, that mark on it forever of like, this was the game that kind of messed with 15.
Yeah. Well, listen, Square messed with 15.
That's very true.
You know?
So like, obviously, I don't think the game in its final form is going to be called Project Athia. I mean, you remember Octopath Traveler, Project Octopath. I don't think it's going to be called Athia Traveler. But would you? do you have any kind of inkling that maybe this ends up being the next Final Fantasy, or do you think like nah? Do you think that could be like a tease that they're just messing with?
That's actually kind of a mind fuck, Andrew.
Right?
Like, if we were shown Final Fantasy 16 without even knowing it, that would blow some people's minds. I mean, I'm open to it. I'm a big fan of the Final Fantasy series, but I also like the idea that Square wants to make, new IP.
Of
so
course.
I could go either way. If that ends up being FF16, I'm into it. If that ends up being a completely new IP, I'm into it.
Because I think in the beginning of that trailer, a lot of people did think it was Final Fantasy 16.
That's what all of us with confirmation bias were hoping for.
Yeah. I mean, let's be fair. Anytime you see the Square Enix logo, you think it's Final Fantasy 16. It's like evergreen at this point. Like, there's at any given point, there's like 3 Final Fantasies being worked on.
Dude, you're not wrong. And the problem is some of those end up being mobile games. Another game on the horizon that is obviously going to have a lot of, I guess what I'll call it, mainstream appeal, is Square Enix is working on this Avengers game. Now, I don't know how much of that you've seen.
I've seen a fair amount, and for me, it's a game that I understand a lot of people are kind of like iffy on. They don't think it looks too great. It being Crystal Dynamics, which is the Tomb Raider team, I believe. Mm-hmm. And, when they announced this, everyone said, oh, Crystal Dynamics with Avengers, like, what more could you ask for? This, this is like straight up Insomniac Spider-Man all over again. But then when it kind of came out and it's basically like Destiny with the Avengers, a lot of people were like, I don't know about this. I don't know how I'm feeling about this. For me, I'm stoked because that's right up my alley. I love those freaking games. Mm-hmm. What's interesting is how they're going to walk that line of they're saying that there is single player content, but it's also a multiplayer game. And it's like, well, how are you going to balance that? Because a million games have promised that to me and none of them have delivered on that.
Yeah, no, it's very interesting where if they could pull it off, it would be quite the achievement on their part. When I checked out the game, the gameplay to me is what's going to be able to draw me in. Because if I'm being honest, I'm actually not a fan of the art style that they chose. There's nothing wrong with the art style, but to me, I think they missed an opportunity because it's like, look, at least for us here in the West, we have no shortage of Marvel content. If you want Marvel content, there is mountains of it waiting for you. So I think Square missed out on an opportunity here where it's like, imagine the art style was like Avengers anime. If they combined East and West like they do with Kingdom Hearts, because they've already done this, they know they can do this. But if they made the art style for Avengers anime and was like, hey, so we know you have all the movies, you have all the comics, you have all the shows on Disney Plus, but if you want Marvel anime, Square Enix has got you. So for me, it's like, that's what I would have loved to see, but I'm not going to hold it against them for not doing that. If the gameplay is good, I think they might be able to get me on this game.
So going back to your point about the art style and this and that, I almost wonder because when they showed the first like cinematics and gameplay, a lot of people felt it was jarring just because it didn't look like the MCU heroes. Like people kind of felt like because, Tony didn't look like Robert Downey Jr. and that's what we've known of Iron Man for so long, that it was kind of like, it almost felt like to a lot of people like a store brand version of the Avengers because it was like not them. So I almost wonder if it was that drastic of an art style change. If it would have been like, at least it would have been easier to accept because it is this drastic difference. But also, when you just said anime Avengers, it made me think about like terrible, like fan art. That would be.
You're not wrong, honestly.
Like some deviant art, like
Twitter and deviant art would be blowing up, and I'm not sure we'd want to see that. Give me one second. They're mowing the lawn outside, and I got my window open.
I could hear it out there.
Yeah, so take over the airwaves. I'll be right back.
Yeah, so I'll keep shamelessly plugging Send the Invite while Nick Landy takes care of that. So the last episode, we talked about The Last of Us, and that's about it. Nick's back. It was a lot shorter than I thought it would be.
I probably should have mentioned the window was literally right behind
Yeah, I had this monologue. I was ready to go, and then I was
do you want to take the monologue? The floor is yours if you got something.
No, but by all means, I'll just, you know what? I'll leave something to the imagination. Go download the episode.
Yeah, exactly. Let me ask you. I don't know how much do you know about the story for this new Avengers game. I don't know a whole lot. Have they showcased who the villain is? Have they done anything of that sort?
They kind of did. They had I don't know if you watched. They had like an event like a week or two ago. It was called like the War Table or something.
I missed that.
Okay, so they kind of went into it, and because this is a games as a service, I think it's like they're introducing, the base villain, and then when they put out, the expansion in 3 months, it'll be something else and this and that. So they're actually going with MODOK for the first villain.
Cool.
So they're kind of doing a thing where they showed it at the E3 trailer where it's like A Day and the Avengers are opening their second tower in San Francisco, which I think was hinted at in Insomniac Spider-Man, because when you go to the Avengers Tower, he kind of says like, like I think these guys headed west or something. Like he kind of hints at it. So that's a little fun Easter egg. So they go, they're having A Day and it's this big celebration, and I don't remember because it was like a year ago, but like the boat gets attacked or some shit, and they're like fighting their way across the Golden Gate Bridge, and apparently Captain America dies.
Oh shit.
And they like the whole city gets like leveled or whatever, and the Avengers are to blame, and it basically sounds like Overwatch, where like the Avengers are like disassembled now or whatever it is, and they're trying to like they're operating out of like a basement or something. So they're kind of like trying to get back, and AIM Laboratories is basically in control of everything now, and MODOK is like trying to like keep the Avengers down, from what I understand. But It's like the worst kept secret of this game is like you're not going to keep Captain America dead. Like that's not. You've literally like shown him in like the main trailer. Like
it's like in Justice League. Everyone knew Superman was coming back.
Yeah, I think there was actually in the War Table when they're showing gameplay, there was a thing with like Miss Marvel, and it has like in every video game in the bottom left how there's like dialogue, and like it shows like somebody else talking. Showed I think it literally said Captain America. And it had like a voice line, and it was like you couldn't edit that out.
They've already spoiled it.
Yeah, it's like the worst kept secret. It's like you're not going to keep him dead. I do recommend watching that and seeing how you feel about the gameplay. Obviously, it feels different playing it than seeing it.
Yeah.
But I was not really impressed with the gameplay I saw. Like, when I play Thor, I want to feel like Kratos in God of War when that axe or that hammer hits my hand. And it did not look like that at all. It kind of seemed like a bigger budget Ultimate Alliance, where you're kind of it felt like you're kind of just tapping B and A, and then you have like an L1 and R1 and an L1 R1 move.
Well, this is what has always scared me about this game is I'm afraid that because they know they could throw the Marvel sticker on it, they feel like they can maybe phone it in. And I don't mean that quite literally, whereas, how do I put it? I'm trying to think. Whereas, say with Project Athia, where to get someone involved in a new IP, you have to blow them away. You know what I'm trying to say? It's like if you're trying to get someone involved in something new, you need to give them that reason to purchase your product. Whereas literally just throwing the Marvel sticker on this, it's going to sell, Obviously,
I mean, look at Sony's Spider-Man. It sold how many copies compared to like a lot of their originals just because of the Spider-Man name. Everybody wants to play Spider-Man.
And to its credit, that's the best Spider-Man game we've ever gotten.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, I think you were one of the ones who told me I had to play it. And then I was like, well, I'm goddamn glad that I did.
That game in modern day is how I felt as a kid playing Spider-Man 2 on
the
my
PS2.
PlayStation 2. Like, that's what it felt like.
Yeah, yeah. No, it's funny. It's like when you see all these like updated renders of like old games from like N64 or PS2, it's like, yeah, this is what I thought I saw when I was a kid.
Exactly.
You know what I mean?
It's kind of, yeah.
It's so weird how that works, right? Because it's like back when 480p just hit, that was like HD, and you're like, wow, it's so crisp. But then you look back at it now, you're like, God, that thing is blurry. I can't even watch this.
Dude, I remember being like 7 and downloading like the trailer for Phantom Menace on like my QuickTime player and just watching that shit in like 360 and being like, wow, this is Star Wars, baby. This is pod racing.
This is pod racing. Totally down for an HD remaster of pod racing, by the way.
They just kind of put one out.
They have something like that coming, yeah.
It's like episode 1 Racer. I think it hit like last week. I didn't play it yet, but
I haven't played it yet either. But honestly, pod racing, cool as hell.
Yeah.
Now, getting away from the Disney Square marriage, they
We're
announced...
not talking for an hour on Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory? We're not doing an hour on that?
Dude, you know me. I could talk for 10 hours on that.
We'll save that for my show.
We're gonna, yeah, exactly. But I don't know how much you know about The World Ends With You, but Square just announced that they're going to make a World Ends With You anime, and the internet exploded, and now suddenly everyone wants to know what the hell The World Ends With You even is.
I've heard a ton about that game, and I don't know what it is. I have to look up. I think there's a VR game with a similar name, and that's what I thought it was. And it is not that.
No, it is definitely not that. I've never played the actual World Ends With You game, but Kingdom Hearts Dream Drop Distance was a Kingdom Hearts World Ends With You crossover. So, like, I know all these characters, and I really like them, but I never saw this coming. You know what I mean? It's so funny. I almost wonder how much of it was manufactured, because all the buzz was about this Kingdom Hearts anime that was apparently being made. And then Square was like, nope, it's World Ends With You, which to me is just fine. Do you have any interest in buying the game on Switch? I know there's a Switch port for it now.
I actually probably would. I think it being on Switch entices me to play more. I feel like the Switch has kind of been my console of, like, you know, like you said, if I'm playing my 120-hour RPG on my PS4, you know, I'll check out a lot of games I may not have checked out on my Switch kind of on the go or wherever I am.
Well, I think one of the things that makes the Switch so great is it's giving everyone a chance to play the games they've missed out on. Not that they don't have new titles that are enticing, but one of the coolest things about the Switch is that everyone is porting their properties and games to it. And all these games, like The World Ends With You, that people like you and I may have missed out on, we now suddenly have the chance to play them. You know?
Yeah.
It's like
I'll be honest.
Go ahead.
I was holding out hope for Persona to come to Switch, and then they were like, "Hey, you're getting like a dancing game," and I was like, "I guess I'm playing it on my PS4." I was like, "All right, I don't want to play a dancing game."
Dude, I love Atlas. I love Atlas to death, having just discovered them in the last 2 or 3 years, and them delivering me one of my favorite games of all time. But they should probably learn that people want to play their games. You know?
Yeah.
Hey man,
I mean,
you
I get
put
it.
Joker in Smash. Now all the Nintendo people want to play your game.
Like, you put Persona 4 Gold on PS Vita. How can you not put this game on the Switch? Come on now. Like, you're not fooling me.
Well, I mean, to their credit, they put it on the PC, which is a start. But I think what a lot of it has to do is, like, Atlas, as long as they've been, even though they've been around a long time, they've always been a smaller development company, of, you know, always catered to a niche market. But Persona 5 has sold more than every Persona game ever made before it. All its predecessors, if you combine 1 through 4, Persona 5 has sold more. So it's
absolutely.
like the money they're making now is something that they've never seen before. So the fact that they might drag their feet on localizing certain properties kind of makes sense, because they probably don't have those infrastructures in place, because, you know, the West wouldn't care about a Persona game until years after. But
you know,
no,
I got a bone to pick with Atlas.
Go for it.
They have yet to bring back the best game of my childhood, which was Snowboard Kids for the N64.
Atlas made Snowboard Kids?
Dude, Atlas made Snowboard Kids. I
No
looked it up.
way!
It blew my mind. Look it up. Yeah, Snowboard Kids. That was Atlas.
On the N64? Holy shit, you're kidding.
Right? Because I looked it up and I was like, wait, when I saw the logo, I was like, that's the Snowboard Kids people.
Oh my god, you're right.
And so now you got all this Persona 5 money. You can't put Snowboard Kids on the Switch. Fuck you, Atlas.
Well,
I'm on to you.
Maybe this is it. Maybe this is the podcast that blows up the Snowboard Kids HD remaster for the Nintendo Switch.
I'm going to speak it into existence. And if you give me that DS bullshit where they tried to make them like realistic kids, I'm not going for it.
Absolutely not.
No.
Realism.
It's gotta be those cartoony. I want to be fighting for that chairlift like I always was. I'm here for it.
Oh, my goodness. That's, yeah. Maybe I'll start a tweet storm at Atlas about snowboard
Yeah,
kids.
dude. This is my new campaign of sending an invite every week of speaking the Snowboards Kids remaster into existence.
It's like, who needs an ad plug when you can plug your own advertisement with Snowboard Kids HD on the Switch?
Dude, if I can claim that I made that happen, like, it'll do wonders for my show.
It would. It most certainly, you would be the Snowboard Kids podcast.
I'm the Snowboard Kids guy.
You might have to shift gears a little bit, but you know what?
I don't know how we got here, Nick.
I don't know. I mean, this is supposed to be a Square Enix episode, so I guess we could go back into it. So now that we've talked about the things that have been announced that we know are coming, they say in July and August, they're going to individually start announcing new upcoming games. Now, it's July 11th. They sent this out in June that they were going to do this. We're halfway through July and still nothing. So that leads me to believe that most of what they're talking about probably going to be announced in August. Because to their credit, I'm sure for obvious reasons, given the state of the world, everything got set back. For instance, we could bring up Melody of Memory, which was just announced, the Kingdom Hearts-based rhythm game. That was supposed to be announced in April. Like, there's already an ESRB rating for it. That's something a lot of people have overlooked, is when that game was announced, it had its ESRB rating in full. Most games don't have that on announcement. So if you ask me, I think one of the things we're going to see is we're going to get a release date for Melody of Memory, and I think it's going to be sooner rather than later. I really think we're looking at September, October, because usually when a game has its rating, it's only a few months away.
What if that was like a launch title for next gen? Was Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory?
Yeah, while they're reusing the old PS2 assets.
I'm like, you want to see some graphical power?
PlayStation 5. Taking backwards compatible to a new level.
We made a new game with the old game.
With the old PS2 assets. Oh my god. I mean, look, that's a long overdue game because Square Enix has had similar games for the Final Fantasy series for a long time. And not that the Final Fantasy series doesn't have great music. It has incredible music. But Kingdom Hearts is one of those series that's almost like, I don't want to say notoriously known for its music, but is really, really known for its music. So this kind of game, to me, is something that is so long overdue. And personally, I know this upsets some people, and I don't blame them, but as the Square shill, the fact that they're putting some of the most important canonical information inside this rhythm game, I think is fucking amazing. Because I think they have to stick to it. It's been 18 years of every single game they're dropping being canon and important. They can't stop.
No.
If you did it for a browser game, you got to do it for the fucking rhythm game. You know?
And that's kind of the meme of Kingdom Hearts, is that, like, there's going to be the lore in this game.
Exactly.
You have to play this bullshit.
Exactly. Well, that's the other thing. That's the one thing I do like is you could always just watch it on YouTube. Like, the funny thing
exactly.
is the cutscenes leak on YouTube 2 weeks before the game even comes out. You could have watched every Kingdom Hearts 3 cutscene a month before it dropped. And some people did. But that's the glory of something like YouTube, right? Because if Square tried to do this back in the PS2, PS1 days, it would really be malpractice. It's like you're going to put a canonical story behind, I don't want to say a paywall because you're getting a game for it, but it's like maybe people don't like rhythm games. You know, there's a big difference between an action RPG and a rhythm game. So if Square tried to pull this off back in the day, I would be calling malpractice all day. But because the cutscenes are going to just be there on YouTube for you to see, I think Square's taking advantage of an opportunity that modern technology presents. So
I think it would come across a little like cash grabby back in the day, just because
rightfully so.
If you can get like that lore in a 40 to 60 hour RPG or in a rhythm game for the same price, like I'd rather have the RPG. You know what I mean?
100%. And like this is my thing. It's like, I'm a big proponent of stories in games. I love stories in games. I think a good story makes a good game great. But at the end of the day, these are games. They have to be fun to play. Like, I don't care if you have a story with the cinematic quality of The Godfather. If the game sucks, you're not getting my money.
Yeah.
So that's basically what it comes down to. I'm excited to see Melody of Memory. I've got a video on my channel that predicts the Master of Masters identity, and the abbreviation for Melody of Memory is MOM, Master of Masters, or Mom, like Sora's mom, who was only there in the first game. Again, gotta love how Kingdom Hearts knows how to meme itself.
Yeah.
Beautiful thing. But, I'm sure we'll get a release date for that. Some people think we're going to see something for Final Fantasy VII Remake 2, just to tentatively call it that. But I'm not sure we're going to. I know the game's been in development since November, but it seems a little early. I don't think Final Fantasy VII Remake needs the hype Like, it made the sales. The next game is years in the future. Like, let your other properties get the spotlight right now. I don't know. Do you think we're going to see anything for the remake in the next couple months?
I don't, but I was going to ask you, like, when do you think you get episode 2 of that? Do you think it's going to be another, 3-4 years out?
Well, it's interesting. Nomura and Katase did an interview where somebody asked them a question just like that. So, like, how is this going to play out? How many titles? When can we expect them? I think, everyone said their idea was a trilogy, but they said, hey, we never decided it would be a trilogy. They basically were like, we're thinking of either doing it in, like, a small amount of big chunky games, or maybe fleshing a game out every 2 years in smaller increments. So they're kind of figuring that out. The game's been in development since November. It's 2020. I would say late 2022 is when I think we'll get the next one. I think 2.5 years after the first one dropped, we'll get the sequel. That's just my tentative prediction.
I do agree that I think it's too early to see it, but I will say, like, Xbox has this upcoming event July 23rd where they've said, it's going to be first-party titles, but there will be some third parties. I think if they're trying to bring the heat, it would be pretty crazy if they had Final Fantasy VII on their stage.
Well, I think that's bound to happen, but Sony signed a deal with Square that they exclusively have the rights to Final Fantasy VII Remake for 1 year.
Okay.
Because everyone's talking about when's it coming to PC, when's it coming to Xbox, because Square has started putting a lot of their properties on the Xbox. But Sony was like, nah. We had...
Yeah, like...
They knew what they were doing. Honestly, it was a no-brainer.
Didn't they originally put, like, Kingdom Hearts 3 on Xbox, and, like, the first 2 games had never been on Xbox, and then, later they put out the collection?
Yeah, no.
How does that work?
Before the collections ever made it to Xbox, Kingdom Hearts 3 came.
Yeah.
Which is just wild to me. And again, to me, it's like, how have you not put these on the Switch yet?
Yeah, it's
We're
like,
going to get the rhythm game, and I get that the rhythm game is supposedly supposed to help newcomers get a grip of the story. You're supposed to get a summary. Supposedly, we don't know. But it seems like you're going to get at least a bare-bones summary of the plot as you move through the 140 songs. But, like, and there's even suckers like me, dude, where it's like, if you put the collection on the Switch, I'm just going to buy it so I could play Kingdom Hearts in the airport. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, exactly.
So it's like, it's a no-brainer. But I guess, at the end of the day, these games do come from Japan. Localizing them for the West is secondary at the end of the day. But it'll be interesting to see. Now, we brought up Final Fantasy 16 before, and we played with the idea that Project Athia might actually be Final Fantasy 16. But do you think in July or August we get a Final Fantasy 16 for the PS5 announcement? Because if I'm being honest, like, we've seen some cool stuff for PlayStation 5 and Xbox One. Like, Assassin's Creed Valhalla is probably the game with the biggest reach that's been announced. But to me, it seems like that next gen is desperate for something to look forward to right now. Not that everyone doesn't have something. Like, I know you and I were fans of Overwatch. Obviously, Overwatch 2 is coming to the next gen.
Of course.
But
there's also, for PS5, there's Spider-Man Miles Morales.
Yes.
Which also looks incredible.
Is that a launch title? Is that going to be ready at launch?
They said holiday 2020, so I'd assume that's going to be launch.
I know this stuff comes out in November, so basically.
I think just because they haven't announced the console date, they haven't announced the game date, but that's going to be, like, the launch game.
Gotcha. That's good, because you're going to need as many launch titles as you can.
Like we said, I think, like, just having that Marvel sticker on your debut product it helps. Yeah.
And I feel like Spider-Man is like the Marvel property. Like, if any Marvel property transcends Marvel, I really feel like it's Spider-Man. Like, if for whatever reason, right? Obviously, they're in no financial trouble. But if Marvel just disappeared tomorrow, I still feel like Spider-Man would just keep going.
Oh, yes.
Whereas a hero like, say Iron Man would be in a little more trouble. Obviously, he'd probably still be fine. Anyone could buy these properties when their companies fail.
Yeah.
But
I think Spider-Man's definitely the most marketable.
Easily. Yeah. I mean,
But I will say that from what I've heard, there's the Xbox July 23rd event, and there's going to be a PlayStation State of Play in August. That's basically a part 2 to the PS5 reveal of games. So it could be very interesting to see that. It would be weird, I think, combining the message of Project Athia and then coming out with Final Fantasy. Like, I feel like you want to let Project Athia kind of shine in whatever it's going to be.
Yeah, you want to let it breathe.
There's a small chance they could show off Final Fantasy 16, even if it's like just a logo, and kind of be like, hey, it's coming.
Yeah.
Just because that's like, oh, I'm going to buy
teaser.
a PS5 for that. Yeah. That's how you get
teaser.
people to buy your console, when you promise them those things are coming.
That something is coming. And that's what I'm saying. Like, not that I'm not interested in the next gen, just the sheer fact they have solid state drives is interesting enough. But I'm definitely not someone who, right now, I don't see myself buying a PS5 in the first 6 months. Unless something gets announced. Not yet, right? Because, like, I have no shortage of games in my backlog I need to take care of. I just bought a new gaming PC. So,
Oh, there you go.
Exactly. So it's like,
for me, I'm just a shill, and I buy these things day one. And
listen, I'm right there with you.
Yeah.
All it takes
want
is
that
one Square game. That's it. One Square game, and I'm there day one, dude.
I want that giant monolithic white blue glowing giant thing that looks like the Barclays Center on my shelf. So my friends come over like, what the hell is that thing? I'm like, PS5, baby.
It's the future. Something?
I'm just like molding into my couch, just like PS5.
Something, without getting too into the console war discussion, I do want to touch on this because we don't have many new Square properties to touch on before we wrap this up. But to get into a little bit of a console war discussion, I've had some talks with people lately, and it sounds like a lot of Xbox people are going to move over to the PS5. I don't know in your world. I'm just speaking anecdotally in my world. That's what I'm seeing.
I mean, right now it's so hard to say just because we haven't seen that Xbox event yet that's happening like next week or the week after. Because it's like that's when they're going to show off Halo Infinite. There's big rumors of a new Fable and a new Perfect Dark. And it's like, on top of that, they bought up a bunch of studios. The studio that did Hellblade is now under Xbox. Double Fine is under Xbox, who does like Psychonauts and stuff. Like, also, they're in talks to buy WB Games, which is for sale, which would include Rocksteady, who makes the Arkham games, NetherRealm, who makes Mortal Kombat. There's a good chance those could end up being Xbox properties.
And I think if you're Xbox, you need as much of that as you can. You need as much of that as you can. Because the reason nobody can really compete with Nintendo is because they have all their first-party IP. Sony is doing a good job of either taking care of their first-party IP or at least taking properties like Final Fantasy and having them be exclusive for the first year. Now, here's where I think Xbox is going to run into trouble. Because as somebody who had an Xbox 360, much to my chagrin, I had to buy like 3 of them because that thing, for some reason, couldn't stay alive. But my NES from fucking 1988 works just fine.
Hey, say what you will about my PS4. It sounds like it was going to take flight during The Last of Us Part 2, but it hasn't died. It's still chugging. It's still
kicking. Still made it to the next gen. Xbox 360, my first one burned out after a year. But the thing about the Xbox 360 was it had a tremendous catalog, and they had a lot of first-party content. But here's the thing. As someone who did love Halo, who did love the Gears of War series, and still does, there's no reason for someone like me to ever buy an Xbox because all those properties are available on Steam. So it's like, I don't know what Microsoft's long-term angle here is, but my thing is if all your games and all your first-party properties are going to be available on Steam, you've just taken anyone like me who wasn't a PC gamer, who becomes a PC gamer. I will now never be an Xbox customer, and it's nothing against Microsoft. I've got a fucking Android, but there's no reason for me to get an Xbox now. So I think that's something they need to come to grips with is like maybe they want to pick a handful of content to leave exclusively on their Xbox. Or they might as well start making gaming PCs at this point. They are Microsoft after all.
They could. And I think look at what the Series X looks like. It looks like a PC tower.
Solid state drives. We're getting closer and closer.
Yeah. Because I think what's interesting, and this is something I'm so excited to just talk about all year on my show until leading up to these consoles coming out, is the different approaches you've seen from Sony and from Microsoft. Because Sony is definitively, we are entering a new generation. This is the box. These are the games. Like, we are taking that next step. We are leaving, backwards compatibility probably going to be a thing, but besides that, we are leaving the past in the past. Like, Ghost of Tsushima comes out next week. That is the last PS4 exclusive. We're moving on. With Xbox, they're almost looking at it like a phone market, where it's like you have, the Xbox One. You now have the Series X. And they've said that games are not going to be exclusive to the Series X for at least a year. So games are still going to come out for the Xbox One. So you can, you upgrade when you want to upgrade. The games are obviously going to run better. They're going to look better. Also, Xbox is going to announce Project Lockhart, which is their digital version, like the PS5 has, where it's digital only. What's interesting to me is that Xbox, the way they look at it, they're starting to look at a more subscriber-based, market with Game Pass, because they look at Game Pass the way they look at stuff like Microsoft Office, where it's like, with something you have to pay for annually, you might skip a year, and you might not pay for a year, but they have you every month to month, and they put out bangers every month that you could just download for free. They keep people hooked, and they'd rather you spend that $10 a month than maybe spend $60 every 2-3 times a year, because they try to keep you on the hook for that.
That's
and
very interesting. Keep going. Sorry.
They look at any kind of games they sell individually. They kind of look at just added bonus. Like, you can go buy, Sea of Thieves on Steam and play it on Steam, or you could subscribe to Game Pass for like $10 a month. Just download it and play it. You know what I mean? So like, they kind of look at it as that's how they're keeping their fan base buying, is they're going to look at more of that type of market and stuff like Game Pass. And it's revolutionary. We'll see if it works.
And you know what else they could do? And I'm just kind of just playing off the top of my head here, because that's a very interesting point that you talk about, that subscription base like Microsoft Office. So it's like, they already have the business structure for this in their heads.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Once they sink that hooks into you, it's Microsoft. They know what they're doing.
Exactly. And it's like, I don't know this because I'm very new to a PC. So if anybody wants to enlighten me, either, on social media or in this comment section, I almost wonder if I could turn my gaming PC into a quasi Xbox. If I could pay for the Game Pass, and maybe Xbox has this interface where I can just play those games on my PC.
They have a Game Pass for PC.
They do.
Yeah,
they have. Good. I got it. I got fucking educated right here by you.
You have Windows, right? That's what you run. So there should be the Xbox tab that you just have. That's like Xbox console or whatever. Like, it's built in there.
Well, let's open up the start menu.
Look, Microsoft, hire me. Look what I'm doing to this man.
Dude, we're two shills, baby. We're two gaming shills.
I'm walking you through the process of buying games on your Xbox. You didn't even know you had an Xbox. It's cooked in. So there should be, you could go on there, and then they have the game store or whatever, and they have Games Pass for PC, and it specifically has certain PC games. There's games that are on both. There's games that are just on PC.
This is brilliant. This answered my whole question. On
top of that, if you have a physical Xbox, they have Game Pass Ultimate, which is both of them for the low price of net. But I think back last E3 they were running a deal to get Xbox Ultimate for $1 a month. So you pay $1 a month. That's how they get you in, and you are now getting free games on your PC and your console. Jeez. Just to download.
Wow.
Yeah, they know what they're doing.
They know what they're doing. No, that's good, because you have to get creative if you're Microsoft, because you don't have Nintendo's first-party content. You don't have Sony's pull to get companies like Square to agree to be first-party content. But what they have built is seemingly this seamless infrastructure to basically,
exactly.
You know what I'm saying? That's very clever. I'm glad you told me that.
And I think what they're doing, because I don't even know if a lot of their games they're going to make exclusive. They bought Mojang, who makes Minecraft. So when I downloaded Minecraft Dungeons on my PS4. When you boot that up, you get the Xbox Studios opening animation. And it's to see that on my PS4 was they're getting in your brain. They're getting in your head.
Yeah, no, they're making
moves.
You
know what I mean?
They're making moves, and they need to. Because the truth is, no one outside of America buys an Xbox. So
yeah, it's a very American product.
It's a very American product. And go ahead.
I was just going to say, I think, Sony clearly won this generation, but that doesn't, they can both win. It doesn't mean Xbox is doing bad. You know what I mean?
Exactly. And like, if you ask me, dude, I think, given that Nintendo has opted out of the console war and just wants to be its own thing.
Yeah, they kind of exist in their own.
Exactly. Like, you know, technically the Wii U was launched with the PS4 and Xbox One.
Yeah.
Failed, and they were like, all right, let's just go
crushed.
do our own fucking thing. Launch the Switch.
Yeah.
Doesn't need to be in line with them. I think Sony's going to win every console war between them and Microsoft. I just think so. They just have more pull in the industry. You know what I mean? And
Yeah, I think.
and they're global. You know what I mean? Japan, America, Europe, Asia, like everybody buys a PlayStation.
And I think what benefits Sony is, like you said, like people are in their ecosystem. I think going into this next gen, a big thing is going to be backwards compatibility. And,
Oh, yeah.
you know, I have this giant catalog. I want to keep playing those games. And they'll give you that option too on PS5. Like, in that sense, you're bought in. But when I look at Xbox, I see all these moves that they've made for the past few years. Like 2-3 years ago, they basically admitted defeat for this generation and started planning. Like, they bought all these studios. They launched Game Pass. They've done wonders with like accessibility features and like accessibility controllers and all that. And they've done these like goodwill moves that I think are all building to this July 23rd event, and they have to deliver with games.
And
like,
I
that
think,
could be their do or die.
And from the sound of it, I think, and this is kind of what we were getting into before, not just Microsoft, but Sony too, they have to. There needs to be more, how do you put it, catalog excitement. And there are some gems in there, you know what I mean? Like the Miles Morales, Overwatch 2, and Assassin's Creed, just to name like 3 big ones. There's a little bit of catalog excitement there, but I think they need a little bit more. And I think what you're painting into is that's on the way. Well, look, we're about 40 minutes in. I think a good way to close this out would be, let's make a prediction. What Square games do you think get announced in July and August?
See, I kind of made like some predictions. What I would want to see is an announcement for the next Life is Strange game. I want to see Life is Strange 3 or whatever it's going to be. I am afraid that might not happen because they do have 2 games in the works of Twin Mirror and Tell Me Why, which I believe is Xbox exclusive, and we'll probably hear more about that in July. But that wouldn't be a new game. So I would want to see a new Life is Strange. Other than that, maybe something in the Nier universe. I don't know if they've announced anything Nier lately.
They did. There are rumors, I don't know how confirmed they are, that they're working on a Nier sequel.
That's Platinum Games, right? Mike, do I have that correct? That makes Nier?
Yes. But if I'm not mistaken, it is... No. Yeah, it's published by Square Enix, but developed by Platinum Games, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah. Because Platinum's been announcing things. They've been, like, sporadically announcing things all year, and I don't really know what they announce when.
Well,
so
the fact that,
maybe
like,
they've announced
E3 and all these
related.
things... I was going to say, the fact that E3 and all these showcases got canceled, everyone's, like, rollout schedule is just... like up in the air.
Yeah, it's like drip feed of like every day I open my feed and it's just like, here's some new game or some new announcement.
Can I be honest with you? I like that. And I think it's better for the companies.
I do and I don't, and I definitely, it's something I like want to talk about on my show, and maybe I'll have you on to like continue this discussion. Like I love it and I love waking up to new news, but I also miss like what felt like the video game Super Bowl weekend of like getting some boys sitting on the couch, getting some greasy ass food and just watching game trailers all weekend.
You know,
like, I miss that feeling.
I do miss that too. But at the same time, I do enjoy the excitement of like any day now you could wake up and your new favorite game is announced.
Yeah, I mean, look at this weekend. They have later today is Devolver Digital's like kind of showcase, and they always do amazing stuff. Mm-hmm. And then tomorrow is Ubisoft at like 3 p.m. or something. And I mean, Far Cry 6 leaked. I don't know if you saw that.
I did.
Yeah. So I mean, we'll get a ton of announcements from them.
Maybe
all I
some
want
gameplay.
is today at Devolver. I just want a release date for that game Fall Guys. I don't know if you've seen Fall Guys.
No.
It is the idea of a battle royale, but you are these little adorable like blobby creatures, and it is like a Japanese game show where it's like you're not fighting each other, you're just trying to get through whatever the obstacle is and like survive. And I just want that game so badly.
That sounds like a Japanese version of American Ninja Warrior, which is like an American version of a Japanese thing. So
yeah, so we're tossing the ball, the pendulum swinging it.
I was gonna say we went all the way around.
Yeah.
I guess what I'll predict is I do think we're gonna get a new Nier Automata. I think that's actually gonna happen because that's a game. It's one of those games where everyone who's played it goes, yeah, one of the best I've ever played. So it's one of those games where the audience isn't gigantic, but anyone who has played it will probably play a sequel. I think we get a new Nier Automata. I think we get a release date for Kingdom Hearts Melody of Memory.
That's true. We probably get that.
I think in August, we might get a Final Fantasy VII Remake 2 teaser, where maybe they just show like a little cutscene, like the smallest cutscene, and then just put up the Square logo. I think we might just get some kind of teaser, but I want to make a wishful prediction. I don't think it's going to happen, but I think Square will announce either Final Fantasy 16 or the next action RPG Kingdom Hearts game. I do think one of those get announced because Melody of Memory was just announced, but that was supposed to be announced way back in April. You know, even though it's new news, in many ways it's old news. So I think, given that like Final Fantasy and Kingdom Hearts are like the two biggest pillars of Square, I think something in the action RPG realm is going to get announced in July, August between the two of them. That's just wishful thinking, though. Of course. So. Those are my predictions. This has been great, dude.
Dude.
I really enjoy having you on. I'd love to have you on again and more frequently. Obviously, you are a wealth of knowledge on these topics. We had no problem running this train for running on 45 minutes now.
Dude, I could talk for hours about video games.
Yeah, me too, dude, especially these days. But I want to leave the floor with you again. Final words, final plug, and then we'll wrap this up.
You could find the show, Send the Invite on Instagram. You could email me, sendtheinvitepod@gmail.com, and check out my last episode. It was The Last of Us 2, kind of spoiler cast, and giving my thoughts on it. It was more of me just like how the game impacted me and themes I took from it. I do have a new episode. I don't know when this is coming out, but my new episode this week is going to be with a friend of mine who is a Google Stadia user, and his thoughts on Google Stadia, because he's the only person I know who uses that. So it's going to be very interesting.
Do they have a wireless controller yet?
They might. I'll tell you the truth.
Gonna have to tune in to find out.
I have not. Whenever someone mentions Google Stadia, I kind of like remember that it's a thing.
Yeah.
Like when Xbox eventually puts out their xCloud, which is like pretty much coming with the new consoles, Stadia I don't think is gonna last long. But I'm interested in hearing his thoughts, so I'm recording that tomorrow, and it'll be out this week. Every Tuesday, I'm putting out the new episodes. So
every Tuesday, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for tuning in. Again, if you want to follow Send the Invite and Andrew Parker over here, I'll have all the links in the description. I want to thank you all for tuning in. I want to welcome you to Phase 2 of the Landy Lodge and the Sages of the Lodge. Andrew, yourself especially, for being here. Thank you very much for all of your support, and we will see all you sickos next time.